Guy Geesh, and welcome to my show, Get Real with Revenue Marketing. And on this show, I like to talk about the elephant in the room a lot of times. Those things that marketers know are happening, but don't quite know how to address head on. And the reason I decided to call the show this is because, over the last 10 years, so many things have changed, yet many things have not changed. And so we're here to talk about how do you really, at the end of the day, affect change. And I can't think of a better guest today than my good friend, David Alexander from F5. David, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Debbie. It's great to be here with you. I appreciate you having me.
So when did you and I meet? It was about, 3 years ago? And I think you were with SAP Concur. Oh, actually, it was earlier, way back at Microsoft, right?
Yeah, we met briefly while I was at Microsoft, and I was introduced to your Rise of the Revenue Marketing book. So that's been quite some time.
Yeah.
While I was leading a marketing team there. And then when I was at SAP Concur, actually, we did some work together, and we started to turn that marketing organization into a revenue marketing organization, and have been doing a lot of the same things here at F5 now for almost 2 years now.
I remember that meeting when we first met at SAP Concur, when it finally dawned on you, oh, you're the lady that wrote that
book. Yes, exactly. Because it had been a couple of years to that point. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it had been. Well, so tell us what you're doing over at F5. What's your role there?
Sure. At F5, I'm responsible for our global demand center. And so that's a little bit of everything. So it's our systems, our tools, our processes. It's also all of our digital go-to-market and all of our data. So how do we really drive an excellent customer experience with all of those components, as well as how do we drive business outcomes in the form of revenue for the organization?
And how long have you been at F5, David?
It's going on 2 years now. So
wow.
It's hard to believe. It's gone by quickly, and we've done a lot of work in that time. But it's almost 2 years.
So I know that when you left SAP Concur and came over to F5, it was because there was a vision for marketing becoming something radically different at F5. So you really have had to be an agent of change. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's an agent of change inside of a changing organization and environment, I would say, as well, because not only is our organization going through a massive change, the company as a whole is going through change from a legacy hardware company to becoming a cloud software and cloud provider. And so we are this organization that's changing inside of a broader organization that's also going through a massive digital transformation. As part of that, we have, when we started this journey almost 2 years ago, there's been a lot of work to first go and chart out what the vision looked like, and that can always be the hardest part, but it's probably the most important part, is to help everyone understand where you're going and understand why you're going there. And so it always really starts with the vision. And I was actually reading an article, funny enough, last night from Jeffrey Moore. It was a post he put on LinkedIn that talked about how most companies do their digital transformation by acquiring software. And they miss the second piece, which is really putting that software into action and into work to go and drive toward a vision. And that really has been the cornerstone of how we've done change, not only when I was at Microsoft or SAP Concur, but also here at F5. It starts with the vision and where are we going.
And I just, for all the listeners, I know a lot of times marketing is like their own worst friend sometimes. Things that we tell other people to do, we're not so good at doing ourselves. But David, you're absolutely right. Taking the time to chart that vision and then to communicate that vision and make sure that everybody's on board with it. It's like you've got to have everybody on the bus, right? That needs to be on the bus, and you're gonna go in that direction. Yep. But I love that you started so practically with that step of just charting the vision. And and Jeffrey Moore, I remember the very first time I read his very first book, Crossing the Chasm.
Yep.
And he's continued to be such a star in our industry to talk about change and to talk about adoption. And so let's talk about, you've charted a vision.
Sure.
How do you help folks adopt that vision?
Well, there's this old kind of saying that that I picked up a long time ago, which was you can go fast by yourself, but you can go far if you bring others along.
I love
And
that.
yeah, and I think the big next step after you establish the vision and you bring others in to help establish that vision and create the vision is really starting to help people understand the role that they play in that vision, right? And why it's important to them. Because all of us, no matter what our role is inside of a company, we all want to have impact, and so helping people to understand what that impact looks like and how it relates to their role is absolutely critical. And so that's kind of the next step, is charting that, and then you set the roadmap to go and reach that vision. So you start to set really clear timing. You start to create opportunities for the team to experience some success along the way too. So what do your quick wins look like? What do your big milestone wins look like along the journey as well? And as you do that, yeah.
I love that step too, is you have to think about the change for the individual person, because you're right, David. A lot of times you see a company and they've got these missives from on high. We will change. We will become this, right? And once it leaves that executive, table, it doesn't really filter down. And change always starts with the individual. And everybody wants to understand, what's in it for me? How does this affect me? Yep. And so taking the time to think down to that level, I think, is critically important. What were some of the tactics that you guys used to help people get this change and this vision? What were some of the more practical tactics that you guys used?
Well, I think the first is evangelism, right? Constantly sharing why we're doing this, because you really do have to tell people 2 to 3 times kind of what the vision is to really get them on board. In many instances, these are going to be new concepts for people too, and they may not really understand why they're doing this at the detailed level and at the functional level. So it's you need to go and drive evangelism. The second is really driving a sense of shared goals, and so not just the individual, which you need to establish, but shared goals across the organization. So what are we all working together for, and what are we trying to accomplish? And then the second is around kind of roles and responsibilities and helping people to understand what their role is inside of this. And then that starts to turn into your workflow, your milestones, who's responsible for what. And so those are kind of the key early building blocks to establishing that vision and going after it. And then you set up the opportunities for you to track your progress. This is when the data really becomes key, is tracking progress. Are we on the right path? Are we making the progress that we want to along the journey?
And again, these are such practical steps for everybody watching and listening. And David talked about, you have to share with people at least 2 to 3 times before they finally get it. And I always tell people, I said, once you're making this kind of change, you need to be like a politician. You have a stump speech and you give it everywhere, anytime, that you possibly can.
That's right.
I even sometimes see people try to, create a brand around what they're doing that is different. And sometimes they'll change the name of an organization, and those things can kind of go a long way also. Absolutely. But also thinking about, what's in it for me, and make sure all that messaging is there. And then, David, you talked about shared goals across the organization. And that is so absolutely true. I mean, I've walked into organizations where literally, even within marketing, the left hand did not know what the right hand was doing. Yep. Without those shared goals, it's not going to be anywhere. I'm working with another company right now, and later on this week, I'm doing a 4-series revenue marketing certification masterclass for them. And the class this week is all about data. And what I'm sharing with them about data is that, when you think about moving an organization from just looking at data to actually providing insights, those shared goals and those shared dashboards, they make just such a huge difference. And you just repeat and you just go. And Absolutely. And then finally, getting down to your roles and responsibilities, again, brilliant. And that's one of the things that I tell. I mean, when I take a look at change agents like yourself, David, one of the things that you'll see within those organizations, you'll have a constant tweaking of the org structure, and you'll have a constant tweaking of the roles and responsibilities that happen there, because it just takes a while to get there. So that's how you drive that change within your company. How do you drive change the way your company thinks about marketing?
Well, that's key, and it actually changes over time too, right? And our organization, for example, the first year while I was at F5, we were a building organization. We were rebuilding, and now we've since transitioned into what we're calling a run rate organization. So no longer are we, building. We are spending most of our time optimizing, tweaking, making adjustments to drive revenue outcomes for the business, right? And or better experiences for our customers. And so that creates a fundamental change that has to happen not only within the organization, roles and responsibilities, shared goals, all of the things we just talked about, but also how you communicate impact to the rest of the organization, right? And how you talk about marketing's impact. In the beginning, it's all about helping people to understand why we're going and making the changes that we're going, and what contributions we intend to make. And there's small wins that you identify along the way. But largely it's about understanding that the fundamental changes that we're making, what do we have visibility into that we had no visibility into before? What things are now fixed that were broken before? This is a lot of the conversation around fixing the pipes that can take some amount of time.
Yep.
And during that time, you're also helping to establish things like, why is marketing source revenue? Why is marketing source pipeline important? Why are marketing qualified leads important? Why is lead prioritization important? All of these components that make up your traditional funnel and the impact that marketing is ultimately driving. Why is it a better experience for customers? And then you start to show them those things, right? You start to introduce very slowly, what does your marketing impact look like? And that the things that I've found typically matter the most is marketing source revenue and pipeline. You have to be careful there, because it's not, you want to make sure it's not marketing taking credit for those things, but it's talking specifically about the impact that we're making in relation to the business in partnership with sales. But there are these other areas where you have to go and show progress in the form of new contacts or new additions to the database. Things that may not have been there had we not, run this marketing campaign or invested in this marketing channel. There are things about efficiencies gained in the system and the process, right? So are we able to go and reach customers inside of a time period that previously we never reached out to these customers? Are leads being followed up on and turning into opportunities or closed bookings that we never followed up on in the past, right? And so you need to go and use this data to go expose those things and share those things in the concept of in partnership with sales, and partnership with your product teams, and partnership with support. But these are the impacts that we're having that the business previously was not able to quantify.
And David, I know from my work with you guys, you have a really great working relationship with sales, right?
Yep, we do.
So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one that's got to be based on trust. It's got to be based on data and transparency, frankly. And so that's why I think it's so important to bring people along, specifically your stakeholders and partners in that early vision stage. Because you need to help people understand why we're going where we're going. You need to help people understand the timeline, because it does take a while to build. We were a building organization, as I said, for almost a full year. We had small measurable wins along the way, but not in the same sense that we've had in the last 6 to 9 months. And so you bring them along, you help them understand the timeline, and then once you reach that timeline, hopefully you've brought them along, and then you start to show here are the ways that we can do that. So that's building trust along the way, helping people to understand why you are where you are and the impact you're making. I think it's important also to not take credit. And I think marketers are so eager to take credit in some ways. And I think it's important for us not to take credit for things. Acknowledge that most marketers are actually not closing business unless we're in a true e-commerce environment.
Right. That's right.
But we're doing so in partnership with sales. And the best the best compliment you can receive in a pipeline review, in a QBR, et cetera, is when one of the sellers stands up or raises their hand and says, that business closed, or we received that lead, or we're feeling the impact of marketing. And so that should be the credit you're seeking, is for sellers to really say, we feel the impact, we see the impact, we know the impact that you're contributing to our business.
So David, you've been doing this for a while now, and one of the very lovely changes that I'm seeing between the sales and marketing dynamic is, they're treating business less like a production line. I do my part and then you do your part, and really more of a team effort, right?
Yep.
And again, as more and more customers spend less and less time actually talking to people, and marketing is having those conversations and helping and aiding and creating relationships, it really is more of a partnership mentality versus I did my part and you did your part. Yeah. And I think that's what you have been able to accomplish in a number of organizations that you've worked in.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it kind of goes back to some of those fundamentals I was just talking about. I think a key piece too is visibility and transparency. And if you go and talk to sellers, a lot of times they'll say, I had no idea those leads were assigned to me. I had no idea that, I had, making it up, I had no idea there were 100 MQLs that you had passed to me. And sellers are there to sell. All sellers want to make money. They want to close more business. That's what they're there for. That's what they're designed to go and do. And so if you give that visibility to them, right, then they can start to see more of the impact that marketing is showing. And that starts to build some of the partnership and the trust that I was talking about. And then you get into a better situation where you can go and talk about the impact of marketing. The worst thing you want to be in is a situation where sales says marketing has no impact, but then you've got slides in a QBR or something that are talking about all of marketing's impact. Yeah. That just doesn't land very well. So, you need to really establish that partnership, and the more you can jointly talk about the impact, the more you can show up together to talk to the organization about the impact that you're driving together as one full funnel, one full experience for the customer. And ultimately going back to that experience for the customer is key.
I love that, David, and that's why I love talking to you, because for everybody watching and listening, David he's what I call an unconscious competent. He's so damn good at what he does. He doesn't even know what he's doing because he's just very, very, very good at it. Because again, a lot of marketing organizations still struggle with how to manage change, how to have that relationship with sales, how to transform their marketing organization. It's still, David, you would think that, we'd come a little bit further, but there's still many, many organizations that are challenged with that. And I love how you practically talk to all of this. And so in the last couple of minutes of the show, I mean, you've been so articulate about, as a leader, how you help drive change across an organization and how you help others embrace that and how you help the company see where you're going and why you're doing that. Yeah. What advice do you have for other marketing leaders who are now being tasked with driving this kind of change? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. As one is first and foremost, invest in the data. The data is going to help you, chart your progress, chart your vision, chart your path, and make sure that you're getting the data right, because that can help you leapfrog. That can help you make the acceleration that you're looking for, that the business is looking for. It gives you the insights and the visibility to make decisions. So, and that takes a lot of the politics out of it too, which is key, right? Because then you have the data. So invest early in establishing a foundation built in data. The second is invest in your people. It's going to be so key. None of us leaders, no one can do this by themselves. It does take an army of people that are supporting the charge, supporting the goal, supporting the mission, and really establishing, that vision, getting those people moving toward it. And often you'll have to invest in training and up-leveling your team as well. So help them get to where they need to go. And the third is, try to have fun and celebrate the wins along the way. right? It is difficult to do this work, and it has to be fun. And because it can be tiring. There are
Hmm.
going to be exhausting days. There's going to be
Yes.
exhausting times, but that's key. And there's a concept that I talk about a lot, and as I do transformations within companies or within organizations, and there's this time that happens, and if you're on your way from kind of beginning state to good, let's call it, there's
Hmm.
always this point where you feel like you've made it, but you're still far away. And so there's this concept called having faith in the middle, because you'll find that you reach this plateau and then the bumps start. And that's a really key time for the organization. So I talk about having faith in the middle, because those are the times when your business partnerships really are established.
I
That's the
love that.
time when the foundation is really secured
Mhm.
and built to help you get to good, and then accelerate to get to kind of future state. And so
That is one of the best
yeah,
phrases I've heard in a long time, because you're all excited at the beginning. Everybody's excited. You've got
yep,
new technology, new whatever, but having that faith in the middle, that is a great, thank you, David. That is a great concept.
yeah,
And then I just had one more thing I wanted to
sure,
tell people about is my new book, From Backroom to Boardroom.
yeah,
It's being published by Forbes, and it's coming out in May. And David was kind enough to be one of my reviewers for the book.
yeah, it's great.
And the premise of the book is that, the CMO can't do this without a really kick-ass marketing operations organization. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the book is great. There's some great insights from leaders around the industry, some of which I've worked closely with in my time
Mhm.
as well. And so yeah, I think it's great. It's a great next phase from your Rise of the Revenue Marketer book, and starting to give real insights into a lot of what the challenges that leaders are facing in marketing organizations, even frankly, even sales organizations are
Yeah.
facing
Yeah.
today as well. So a great book. Thank you for the opportunity to get a little
Oh,
pre-read on that, and excited to see how it does for you.
oh, me too. I can't wait. It's been a long time coming. Well, David, thank you so much for being on the show. I enjoyed it. It is always such a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise.
And man, when this pandemic is over, I'd love to come back out and see you guys. You have such a wonderful
I love
company. You
that.
have such a great team. And the things that you guys are doing are just amazing. So thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Oh, thank you, Debbie, and thank you for having me today. And definitely look forward to seeing you back out in Seattle soon, and once we get past all of this stuff.
All
But
right.
thank you for having me today. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Bye-bye,
All
everybody.
right.
And remember, it's a great day to be a revenue marketer. See everybody later.